Well, good morning, everybody. Oh, I always wait to be patient.
There you go. It's all yours.
So good morning, everybody. I'm going to be turning my camera off because we have a great number of people joining us today. So I just wanted you to know that I'm a real live human, and I am here to hang out with us all today as we're learning some math stuff. But I'm going to turn my camera off. Some people have a lot of bandwidth issues. If we have a lot of people on, you're going to be using chat a lot. So we are all real people, but I'm going to turn my camera off. So please don't, just know that I'm here. So I'm going to turn off my camera here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Amber Deleger. I work for Metro North Adult Education. I currently work at the Anoka Ramsey Community College and sometimes at the Anoka Technical College sites. I focus on working with college students who are in developmental or pre-college level coursework. And I am working with the state of Minnesota and the Min state system, looking at how can we support students who aren't quite ready for college level math courses. What can we do as ABE teachers to support kind of co-enrollment in those? So you'll be hearing more about that in future sessions. What I want to do as we start out today is get us started with in the chat. You guys are doing a really great job. I'm seeing where you work. I'm seeing a lot of great people that I haven't seen before, but also some friendly faces. So it's wonderful to see all of you. One of the things that I would like you to do is make sure you find the chat. And in the chat, make sure you're chatting to everyone. And I want you to take 1 second, introduce yourself, where you're working, and what is something you have your students do in class almost every time you get together. I'm seeing some math warm-ups and games. That's great. Puzzles. That's amazing. Oh, laughing. I have to do that. I can't take myself too seriously. Working in Google Classroom, doing partner work. I like this idea of warming up, doing a word problem. So some great stuff coming in. Please keep it coming. Working with a partner, that's amazing. Which one doesn't belong? Those are great strategies. Review previous work, and there's lots of ways we can do that. And hopefully today you'll get some ideas. So I want to encourage you to keep putting some stuff in chat. We're going to revisit these ideas as we move through our session today. I want to kind of set the stage for what we're going to be doing. One of the things that I want you to know is that our goal for this session is that we're going to talk about some researched best practices around routines. We are hopefully, if my technology plays nice, going to experience a routine that you can use in your classroom, and it can be done in person or high flex or online. I know we're all doing lots of different kinds of strategies of teaching right now, and hopefully give you resources so that you can find new routines or maybe revisit a routine that you haven't done in a while. And so today we're going to do a little math, and we are going to hopefully show you a lot of resources because there's absolutely no reason you should be recreating the wheel as you are doing this work in your classroom. I do want to let you know that I am here wearing a couple different hats. One of the hats I am wearing today is I am a representative for the Adult Numeracy Network. For those of you who are, is anybody here a member of the Adult Numeracy Network? I know we have a couple. We got Rebecca, who's a member. We've got Lindsay and Penny. Great. It's great to see we've got some ANN members. So ANN is the Adult Numeracy Network. It is it's a professional organization for numeracy educators who specifically work in adult education. So this is a really unique organization that actually has a really strong grounding in the state of Minnesota. And so I am the Region 3 representative, which is the person who kind of takes care of the Midwest region. We also have Rebecca, who happens to be in our meeting right now. Rebecca is our state representative. So Rebecca is the person that works at the state level, supporting adult numeracy teachers, trying to get them to join our community. So some of the things that I want you to know is that as a community. ANN is designed to create lots of research. It's designed to collect resources, and it's really designed to be a community. We try to make sure that we have a number of resources that are free to anybody, but we do have some really great options for people who become members. You can become an individual member of the Adult Numeracy Network, or you can have an organizational membership. So we're going to talk more about that. If you are on Twitter, I really encourage you to follow us on Twitter at Adult Numeracy 1. Share cool math stuff with ANN Math as your hashtag. And if you follow us, we will follow you, and we often love to share and collaborate and work together on a lot of these great things that we are trying to do. So we'll talk more about ANN later, but I do want you to know that this is a session that we bring to adult numeracy educators around the country. And so this is a really great session that is being shared with professionals on both the East and West Coast, and now us here in the Midwest. So the Adult Numeracy Network has teaching and learning principles. These are best practices that are research-based, designed around what is the best things we can do as we are teaching and learning numeracy ideas. So mathematicians should. So I would like you to encourage you to consider yourself a mathematician and your students mathematicians, but mathematics instruction should include some of these things, if I can get it to go. We should build on what students already know. So we have this challenge where a lot of times we don't see our students very often. And so we're building new on top of new on top of new, and everything just doesn't stick. So if we're able to find ways to build on what students already know, we're going to get some informal and more formal and maybe some creative strategies that come out where students can solve problems. And we also want to provide some opportunities for this metacognition, for students to question and reason and figure things out about their own progress, about their own strategies, in lots of different ways. So these are some things if we're looking at what do routines do, our goal is to try to leverage these two learning principles in our instruction. So when we started just a few minutes ago, one of the things I asked you to do was to think about what is something that you have students do in almost every class. So those are going to be our routines. So for those of us who have done work with the TIF or ACEs skills, we talk a lot in learning management, and when we talk about self-management and learning strategies, a lot about norms and routines. And so this ties great into those ACEs lessons that you're already producing, thinking about how can we use routines in our class. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a second and I want you to go scroll back up through your chat. And I want you to see things that our friends have said that they're doing. And I want you to think on them and how can we recognize these as routines? So I want you to take a second, go back and look at the chat and see what kind of routines do you see? So some common examples of routines that you might have in your class, we have these warm-up activities, and usually they're designed to be high interest for our students. You might have like a think, pair, share kind of activity where students know when they come into your classroom, this is what they can expect. So they don't have to look, they spend time really learning the routine early, but once they have that routine down, now it's a way to access new information rather than learning how to learn that information. So when my friends are saying that they're using group work, students know that they can come in and expect right away to be doing group work. So then that alleviates some of that math anxiety and some of that math stress about getting to work. And you might have like a weekly quiz or an exit ticket or a free write or going over homework. Those are lots of examples of pretty standard routines that we do. And they might be ones that you're thinking, Amber, those all sound like ELA or like reading. We're really good at reading routines, but it's often hard for us as instructors to translate those into the math classroom. So what I would like you to do for just a second is to think about, why do you think, other than, like I said, that it might help students reduce their math anxiety, what are some other things that are helpful about having routines in your class, both for you and for your learners? So go ahead and join us in the chat. What are some things that are helpful about having routines in your instruction? So I see Rebecca is saying that it's a great way to practice getting students to talk about math, not just doing math. I love this idea. Students know what to do. And the less we are the sage on the stage, the people presenting the information, and more that they're able to just jump in and start doing, it provides this wonderful power shift where students feel more powerful. Students know what's to expected. There's organization. Things kind of go smoothly, right? Students, when they know what to expect, they can just kind of come in and do what they need to do, and they know what success will look like. Teresa's got a great point here about freeing brain space. So when I tell my students we're learning new on top of new, you can't keep all that. So what these routines do is it provides a shelf in your brain so that you can take a book and put it on the shelf or pull it off of the shelf and use that to show your learning. Students know what to expect. Isn't that amazing about how when students know what to expect, they're often more willing to take risks, which goes into Susan's comment right here. It builds confidence. So if our students feel confident, they know what to expect, they know what success is going to look like, and they're able to have more brain space to try to play with content, that creates confidence in themselves, not just as a mathematician, but as a deep thinker. So those are all really great ideas. Anything else about why having a routine in your classroom might be something that's helpful? I noticed somebody said in the back, it's less work for you. You have to front end a routine often. You have to teach it. You have to practice it. You have to do it a lot. But once students know how to do it, you get to back away. And so sometimes it is my favorite thing in the world where I am surprising to no one, maybe a little like unorganized at times. So if I can at least make sure that my routine is ready and it's set up and ready to go for when students enter the room, they have something to do that is productive and useful. And then I can do something like do individual check-ins with students or write a new problem on the board. There's lots of things that I can do at that time where it's still important learning time. Repetition helps with retention. Okay, I swear I didn't make Kristen a plant, but that is absolutely important here. So we want that repetition. We want them to be able to have this information that they're able to recall. So routines, we buy it. I don't need to sell you on the idea that routines are important, but sometimes I think we feel the stress and the wanting to try a lot of new things or wanting to jump in right away to a lecture or direct instruction, when sometimes these routines can be even more powerful. So these are just two research, some kind of research-based things that I want you to kind of think about. And I want you to read, what do we mean when we talk about instructional routines? I want you to take a second and read the screen. And I really want you to be as careful as you can in reflecting on, how does this support teachers and how does this support students? So I'm going to be quiet for a minute while you look at and reflect on these two statements. So as I'm reading these to myself, I'm noticing that there's this idea about, I even bolded it because it's so important for me to remember to give myself space to invest in some routines, is that these are specific and repeatable opportunities for learning. So what this is there's purpose to it, and that I can use it for lots of different subject areas or content spaces. I don't want a unitasker, because my students don't really thrive if something is a unitasker. So I love Alton Brown, and one of the things he says, when you are cooking, you want a tool that can do lots of different things, so you're not cluttering up your shelf with things you're never going to go back and use. And so that's going to be something that's really exciting. So as I'm looking at this, I have a thing that just kind of comes to my mind. You know, everybody knows who Steve Jobs is. He is known for his black turtleneck and his jeans. And it's said that Steve Jobs wore the same basic outfit every day. And it might seem a little weird and it might seem a little silly, but the idea was that he didn't have to spend the bandwidth figuring out what he was going to wear. He just knew what he was going to wear, so he could use that bandwidth on doing something that was more engaging, or he could focus on something that was more important to him. Whereas something as silly as what are you going to wear today can really throw people off. So I really want us to kind of just think about the idea that if we can create meaningful instructional routines, students can focus and engage deeper with the content of an activity. So if they're not being distracted, or if they're not being thrown off by what am I supposed to be doing right now, they can actually get engaged faster and be more meaningfully engaged in the content. So when my students are able to be more engaged, then I can focus on the student thinking. The student thinking is what I want to know. So if I'm just trying to spend all the time getting students to engage with a task, I'm not able to hear what they're thinking. I'm not able to walk around and watch their strategies. I'm not able to really spend that time learning about how they're attending to that math. And that's a really powerful time. Yes, engage more fully. Lindsay, that's a great point that we want to make sure we're bringing in. So I want you to know, as a teacher, we can use these routines because it actually can help focus our lesson planning as well. If we know that the first 15 minutes of our time together is going to be spent doing some kind of task, what that's going to actually enable us to do is focus our lesson planning. It actually makes our process easier. And there's a lot of benefits that can happen from us saving our own bandwidth. And I know that that might be weird for us to think about, but knowing that we are still finite beings, and even though we often work way past our contracted time, if we are able to create routines for ourselves and for our students, we can use our bandwidth as being maybe more creative in other parts of our class instruction. So any big questions or ideas about instructional routines before we try one? If you think of any questions, feel free to drop them in chat. And if I don't get to your question or I miss it, know that I'll go back and look at the chat later, or you can send me an email and follow up with me. I'm absolutely happy, because I know that sometimes I talk really quickly when I get excited and I've had coffee, but also sometimes it takes some time for our brain to kind of process what we're hearing. And so if a question comes up later, please contact me. So today we're going to actually use a mathematical instructional routine. For some of you, it is not going to be a new routine. It's actually a routine that we've had presentations on by Rebecca in the past. But in this idea, I want to be able to show you what a routine maybe you are familiar with can look like if you are working in a high flex kind of environment. So Molly's putting a link in there. I'm not sure if that's the right link. It should be a Jamboard link. So what we're going to start out doing is we're going to have you do the routine like you are a learner. I'm not going to ask you to like pretend you're a student, but just kind of be really present in the activity and try it on. Figure out what this feels like for you. And then after you try the activity, try to put it on your teacher hat and see, like, with my teacher hat on, how would I view this activity differently? So what I'm going to do is we're going to be doing a clothesline math activity. So in this clothesline math activity, you are going to have 4 tasks. So clothesline math is for those of you who have washed clothes and put them outside to dry. That's like a clothesline. So like a number line, a straight line. The first task I'm going to ask that you do is I'm going to ask that you create a number that fits within the parameters I'm giving you on the number line. So you're going to create. That means you're going to come up with a number. Then after you come up with a number, I'm going to ask you to move your number. So I want you to take your number and physically move it where you think it belongs. Then I want you to take some time, and I'm going to ask you at one point to describe or share your strategy about why you put your number where you did. And then we're going to do our final process, which is revise it. So after we see lots of numbers on our clothesline, after we hear our friends' reasoning, you might want to adjust where you put your number. And all of these 4 steps are a really common problem solving strategy that I want you to know. So we're going to create a number, move our number, share our strategies, and then revise it, because we need to be comfortable with revising our thinking because we might not always get it perfect the first go round. So I am going to, you should be on a Google slide right now, and I'm going to click on mine and hopefully it gets me to the right place. So this is actually a template that you will have access to, and this is something that you can use with your students. This is a great thing that you can do in person or HighFlex or online. So for those of you that are on the first slide, I want to encourage you to go to the second slide here. Oh, that's right. I put it on slides, not Jamboard, so we didn't have problems. Thanks, Molly, for knowing me better than I know me. So what you're going to do is I want you to think of a number that is between 3 and 5. Write it on a block and then put it where you think it goes. So I'm going to be quiet. If you are having trouble and need some tech support, you can message me or Andy or Molly. And if you see an idea and you want to add another square, you absolutely can. All of those things are easy to do. I am not rushing you, but I see that some people are playing on the third slide. If you put a number and you're happy, I want to also let you know that this third slide has another idea we're going to talk about in just a minute. But for those of you who are eager beavers, you can look at the third slide, but no rush, no pressure. So I noticed we have a bunch of numbers listed and I'm kind of watching our time. Just as a reminder, the clothesline math activity actually started by having instructors put clotheslines up in the front of the room, and we're going to look at some pictures of what that looks like. Now, as we're doing this activity, I want to remind you that we are not doing this as a routine because it's not yet routine. We haven't gotten together multiple times and done this task. So right now it's still kind of an activity, but if I were to come and meet with you weekly, by about week 3, you would know what to do. When I'm looking at this activity, I'm able to adjust my numbers. I'm able to adjust my endpoints. I'm able to do lots of different things with this task. So what I want you to do now, I see some really cool things happening. I would like you to, in the chat, pick one of the numbers you put on the number line and give me a short, no more than 1 sentence reason why you put your number where you did. How would you practice describing why you put your number where you did? And it's really helpful for us if you can put your number in your chat so I know what you're talking about. So we're looking at slide 2. In the chat, tell me what number you put in and why you put it where you did. I'm going to have to say right away, Susan and Charles are exactly the kind of students I'm going to see in my class. I'm going to have the one who likes to feel that balance and is going to get that in there early. And then I'm going to have the student who's going to wait and see what other people are doing and then pick a number that feels good. Everybody's got a personal connection to some numbers that they can use. I picked a number that wasn't used yet. That's great. I see, I'm hearing, I had to cram mine in. Yeah, there's a lot of us here. So if we were in a classroom, I might have you on like breakout groups doing this activity too. So I'm seeing decimals and I'm seeing, well, I found a number and I wanted a number a little bit bigger than that. So I made a number bigger than that. That's fantastic. And Andy and Molly, if you see something in the chat that I'm missing, please feel free to unmute and there's some amazing stuff coming in. Rebecca's talking about chunking. If you've ever attended an M&I kind of session, you know we love talking about chunking because we do that a lot. Wow, there's some really great stuff. There's a great strategy here. I wanted to make sure that I was doing it right the first time I did it, so I picked something I knew I couldn't screw up. Absolutely valid strategy, absolutely valid reasoning. Love that. So I like this idea as I'm kind of seeing, and I really want to encourage you to be watching the chat. There's some magic stuff happening there. And if you are watching the recording, I'm trying to read them out as much as I can. There's this idea that I'm trying to use something that I know. And what I'm seeing in the chat is I'm seeing people making comparisons to things that are around where they want to put their number. And so that is really wonderful. I see a 4.99 and I can totally, so there's a 4.9 and then a 4.99 at the very right end of our number line. And what I love about that is I can see I have a couple students in mind who are going to continually play with that, who can get closer. And that provides some really cool opportunities for exploring. And so I do a lot of what's called number of the day, where I give students a number and they have to show me lots of ways to represent it. This activity is like an expansion of that, because now we have to represent the numbers 3 to 5 in as many creative ways as possible. One of the things I want to kind of remind you is that you are coming in as people who work with money and people who bake and people who teach. And so the idea of decimals and fractions are pretty comfortable to you. I do want to let you know that you can change these numbers in any way that makes the most sense to your students. So if you're working with a lower level class and you are really working on whole numbers, You could put 0 and 10 and really more expect them to just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the number line. If you are working with a fractional unit, you might put 2 fractions on there and really push them to add fractions. This could also be done really well at the end of a unit for them to show you, especially because oftentimes we teach things like fractions, decimals, ratios, and percents all together. You could really kind of play with that. So we've done our first couple steps. We've created numbers, we've moved the numbers, we shared about our ideas. Now I want to encourage you to do the final step. So the final step in this process is to revise. Nobody comes into math class getting their answer perfect the very first time. So I want us to take a pause and kind of look at, do our numbers make sense where they are? So if you notice that like 4, if I'm looking at the people who placed 4, to know that 4 would be in the right place, we would want it to be exactly halfway between 3 and 5. If your students put 4 a little bit too far to the left or too far to the right, we would want to revise that and say, okay, where should 4 really be? So I want you to take a second and look at, in comparison to where other people put their numbers, and in relation to what we know about numbers and their relationships, are there any numbers in here that we should move around or that we should adjust? What benchmarks should we use here to know we're in the right place? So take a second and look at, I know it's really tiny, I'm sorry, but look at, are there any numbers here, or are there any benchmarks we could use to make sure everybody is going in the right, every number is where we want it to be? So does anybody see numbers that would be good benchmarks for us? So our students really benefit from the idea. So I'm going to ask you to put your teacher hat on right now. Our students really benefit from having mental benchmarks. So we talked about, oh, it's okay. I know that moving your number can be tricky. So one of the things is that when we click on it, we have to try to get the cursor with the 4 arrow, like the 2 overlapping arrows, and then I can click on something and move it. I like Jamboard for this activity a lot because I think Jamboard stuff is easier to move, but I wanted to make sure it was in this template so that you can, we could have more than 20 people in it at a time if we needed to, and that you can have access to this. So 12/3 and 4 could be a great benchmark, and they should be lined up directly. They should be right underneath each other. Lindsay, why should I have those lined up exactly? They are equivalent. Oh, so then I could ask my students, what are other numbers that we could put exactly above these 2 numbers that would still be equivalent? So there's ways for us to kind of pull more things together. What would be another equivalent that would stack on top here? Other benchmarks that I like to try to use with students that they like to put in are like 0.5 and 0.25, or a quarter and a half, and talk about like visually on the number line, how do you make sure that those are in the right spots? And so as I do this routine with my students, oftentimes you have the eager beavers who are maybe a little bit more nervous or really need to make sure that what they're providing to the group project is right. They will get in the habit of starting with the benchmarks because they can contribute, but then as the routine becomes more comfortable, they can add something more creative. So in this process, if we were doing it with students, I would encourage students to be really, like, depending on where we're at in the process, I could be really, really picky or not really picky. Is it close enough? And in math, when is it close enough? You know, are we doing neurosurgery? Well, then we better make sure we're exactly where we need to be. Or if it's just, you know, an estimate-ish, then there are times in our life where an estimate-ish is just good enough. And talking about our students when that happens. So I'm gonna, if you go down to the next slide, slide 3, you're going to see there is another way that you could potentially do this activity where you're doing attendance, because I don't know if any of you are like me. I am horrible at remembering to take attendance. And so one of the things that you could do is something like this, where students pick a number, and so they write their number and their name on the slide. Then I can go back and I can take attendance, but it also saves me time. So I'm not taking attendance after or during while they're trying to do this activity. So there are lots of cool ways, but then we can also then in our debrief, give some people some cool ownership. I love to try to name strategies when I can. And so I can be like, ooh, the anonymous T-Rex there got 3.9. That is a fantastic thing, because that is really tricky. How do I know I put it on 3.9 and not 4? And then anonymous T-Rex can have some excitement kind of defending their reasoning, which we know is an important mathematical practice. So I just wanted to kind of show you. And then I love that we've got Jesse over here who's like, I will not be confined to your number line, and I'm gonna put something way out the outside. And that provides great opportunities for chat as well. So these are just a couple examples of what some number line math could look like. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to come back to me on my Zoomie land so that we can finish our time together here. So I am going to do this and make sure my chat's open. I hate that chat goes away when you do this. So I want to take a second here and reflect on our clothesline math activity and think about these principles we have been kind of working with, and how does this clothesline activity help us meet these kind of principles, these goals. So did we, or how did we? This is a reflect. You can chat if you want, otherwise just think to yourself, how did we, or did we build on something you already knew? How did we, or did we value informal and alternative strategies? Did we, or how did we include opportunities to question, reason, solve problems, figure out our own progress using different kinds of strategies? That's our goal with a good, solid routine. And I can see through our chat alone, a lot of that thinking was happening, but just kind of as a way that you are reflecting on how these activities are going, something for you to think about. So if you are in person, here are some pictures of some clothesline maths that happen live. I asked you to create your own number, but if I'm in person, I could give you a number, and that could be something that you do is as you sign in on the sign up sheet, you grab a number, and then before you sit down, you need to figure out where you might put it on the number line, or lots of different kinds of ways that you might manage an in-person number line. So for some students, giving them a number provides them some scaffolding, especially as you're getting started. You might want to start with pick a number from this pile and figure out where it needs to go as they're getting used to the routine. Yes, adding negative numbers could be really important. Looking at shapes with some fractional different things could be wonderful as well. So things that you might not normally think about, obviously we talked about fractions, but you could do fractions in words, you could do fractions in pictures, you could do decimals and percents. You might be able to show some arrays and some different kinds of pictures that might make you do it. So some of the things that you might notice on that top picture, they used clothespins to connect things that were equivalent. So that idea, like Lindsay was saying, of stacking, so we can visually stack. And sometimes it gets really exciting for students to see that trail go long. You can notice on the bottom two that we've got double number lines. Double number lines become an absolutely huge strategy for students when they get towards middle school math. So those like level CD concepts, those double number lines can get really important. So there are some fun things that you can play with there. So I want you to take a second and I want you to think about how might you use this in your class, or when might you use that in your class? So if you want to chat out in a way that you think you might use this, or a way that you have used it, I would love to hear that.
Amber, you have about 5 minutes left.
Roger that, Malls. All right, think about that as you kind of come in and how you can do that. So I have a few things I want to end you with. Is that ANN has collected a bunch of instructional routines that are accessible and challenging to all levels of students, that are presenting problems before explanations, which is an absolutely important thing as we're building this self-directed learning, that can be approached multiple ways. We want lots of different entry points for students that promote understanding through discussion, like Rebecca was saying. We want to make math visual and thinking visible, and we want to encourage the practice of mental math. So one of the resources that we have, hopefully you will be able to see this, the Adult Numeracy Network website has a ton of instructional routines that the link I will just throw in chat right now. These instructional routines are free, even if you are not a member of the Adult Numeracy Network. But what you can see is that there are videos, there are different resources, there's examples. This website has a collection of over 20 different kinds of routines that you can use as you are getting working. So I really want to encourage you, as you are looking at routines, to spend some time on this website and try some different ones out and figure out which ones work the best for you and your learners. So these instructional routines are free. They're great to access. The Adult Numeracy Network website has a ton of really great free resources. So under practice, you can read about resources and about current things that are happening in adult numeracy. You can watch some great videos from other instructors. And then there are teaching resources, there are visual manipulatives, there's Desmos. There's a lot of great resources here, all free for you. There are some things that you get access to if you become a member, but there are lots of really great stuff there that you might want to check out. So just as a reminder, the Adult Numeracy Network is a great organization for you to become a part of. It is only $20 a year, and you can get access to lots of wonderful free stuff. So there's teaching resources. We have a bunch of different events. We have different groups. We have different study circles, learning groups, projects. And if you are a member, you can really get engaged in some of those. There are also grants for research. So if you are looking at trying to do something in your practice, or you want to do research to learn more about how to do something, you can receive a grant to cover some of that research. And then there's also lots of really great ways to get involved and engaged. So if you are looking at a way to improve your numeracy instruction and become a part of a community, I really want you to do that. I know I have 1 minute left, and I really want to make sure that you know that amazing numeracy resources are coming your way from homegrown resources with our Minnesota numeracy team. So we have Math Institute coming up. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute, but if you can get September 23rd free in your life, please, please, please consider it. We are going to have a CCRS Foundations refresher. So if it has been a minute since you've looked at standards, this is a great opportunity for you. And then we're going to be doing content webinars. So I know that we are going to, on March 14th, have some really fun Pi Day activities. So there'll be some great stuff for you to see. I do want to just give a quick plug here. If you are not familiar with Dan Meyer, I want to tell you that he is somebody that I want to be like when I grow up. I've had the opportunity to work with him, and he is absolutely amazing. He is going to be our keynote speaker for Math Institute this year. Math Institute is a yearly event where we get together and play with numeracy. Whether you identify as a math teacher or a teacher doing math, there are things for you to learn. So we are going to be doing a lot of work around really some big creative thinking, problem solving. This is going to absolutely be phenomenal. And so this event is a virtual event. You will see things about it in your newsletters that come out from Atlas. So please make sure you check that out. Otherwise, I know I kept you a little late. I am so very sorry, but my name is Amber Deleger. I am here to support you as you're working. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. I am happy to stick around for a second, but I do know that there's a lot of other great sessions happening today. So I hope that we are able to connect really soon. Thank you for staying an extra minute. I appreciate all of you. If you have questions, I can stick around. Otherwise, email me.
Okay, and I'm going to stop the recording.